Hi there. This is my podcast review for Marvel's Agatha All Along, part 1 of 2. Reviewing the first half through episode 5. Because after that, they put out a mid-season trailer because of a twist that this is officially the mid-season point, even though it's a 9-episode season. So I'm going to cover this in two halves. This is the first part, just an introduction, that obviously my channel doesn't really cover Marvel stuff that much. It's mostly a Game of Thrones franchise channel. But I made an earlier video talking about how this'll be when we start seeing all these behind-the-scenes reforms from a production standpoint that they want to implement at Marvel, that they weren't really running things like TV shows, just supplements to the movies. And I said I'm going to review Agatha All Along. Individual episodes didn't really justify making individual reviews, plus schedule-wise. It made more sense to do two halves, and making everyone wait until the very end would have been too long if I watched all 9 episodes, then made a big hour-long thing. I think treating TV shows in halves is a better idea. And I think I mentioned this before, that we have a long wait between seasons for Westeros stuff, even though Dunk and Egg is probably coming in spring. But other channels do this, like Preston Jacobs' Red Team Review. Other channels go, hey, in the meantime, I'm watching these shows anyway, I might as well dash off an audio-only podcast review. Just, like with streaming algorithms, the taste clusters, that if you liked House of the Dragon and Dunk and Egg, maybe you'll also like other shows that are on HBO, like Penguin. I'm going to review that. Or, superhero things. Preston and Carmine review Amazon's The Boys a lot. So just mid-season, dashing it off, audio only. I'm going to be covering a couple of things of just what are the shows of the fall. I'm dashing this off quickly. I will get to Amazon's Lord of the Rings was earlier, at the very early part of fall. I'm going to cover that before the end of the year, but I thought that the shows I'm looking forward to in fall were Rings of Power, Agatha All Along, Penguin, work head-to-head in early fall. And then later in fall, I think I'm probably going to make reaction videos to that Dune prequel show also on HBO. Other HBO shows like House of the Dragon and stuff. I don't know how good that Dune show is going to be, but the trailer actually looked decent, so it might be a fun ride. Just as a diversion, I don't know. I'm also going to watch Arcane Season 2, but everyone's covering that. I'm not going to bother making a video about it. And that's animation, it's not live action. So here's my initial thoughts on Agatha All Along. I already said that the real official test bed for the new Marvel model, where they have actual TV showrunners running it like a TV show with reshoots and all that, and pilot episodes. The real test bed for that's going to be Daredevil Born Again next spring. But you can feel it in this, that this was run better, that they ran it the way a TV show is supposed to be run, and they let them do rewrites and stuff like that. So the showrunner is Jacqueline Schaefer, who was also the showrunner on WandaVision, which is great. And they said that while WandaVision was intended as a one-shot, we now think of it as a trilogy of shows, one-season shows, with the first being WandaVision. Agatha All Along is the middle part, and the upcoming Vision Quest TV show will be the concluding part. So we'll see what happens with that. And it helps, continuity-wise, they have the same showrunner who did WandaVision, Schaefer, and there were fun follow-ups and cameos from WandaVision at the very beginning. It doesn't dominate the whole thing of remember how great WandaVision was, but nice little cameos by the cast members that we liked in that. The same quirky vibe. And just as WandaVision was this celebration of TV history, this decade-by-decade style shifts of TV sitcoms, like from I Love Lucy to Malcolm in the Middle type stuff as the decades went on. This sort of plays around with different eras of horror tropes, with the different trials that they have to go through. They make fun of different things, but overall, it's just plain fun. It's just plain a fun series. It's a dark comedy, And it's just the pacing is really well done, that it never drags. It's a light comedy. It's not going to reinvent your life the way WandaVision was, whoa, is this deep. It's this quick-paced light comedy that's really moving right along. The main selling point is that Catherine Hahn is a national treasure. I mean, just her comedic timing is great. That she has this blunt style of humor that she's not worried who she offends about anything. And though I would say the supporting cast is pretty good too. Now consider this is a spin-off of a movie spin-off. And more or less, there aren't really any characters from MCU movies in it. Like WandaVision had, Wanda, Vision, a couple of other things that and then, Darcy was in it. That they really don't in this so far. But it's still engaging because, clearly it's the spin-off of WandaVision. You meet the neighbors again and stuff. Is it the TV show of the fall? Absolutely not. It wasn't trying to be. In terms of just the scale, it is a smaller scale character piece, and even a small scale character piece can be pretty engaging. No, I admit HBO's Penguin is a real triumph. I thought it would be good because the movie team was back for it, and it was better than I had hoped it could be. But this was still for Marvel shows, which had been in the middle of a drought because they were pausing to restructure things. This was a real return to form. It felt like I was watching how great it used to be with WandaVision in 2021. So it's interesting. So if you haven't seen this yet, the whole point is I'm testing it. Keep in mind when I do these reviews, I'm addressing two audiences. First, probably people who have seen it, and also people who are wondering if it's worth your time. And I'm saying, yes, it is worth your time to actually sit down and watch through this. Most of the episodes aren't really that long either, whereas Penguin is always a full hour. Some of these are shorter in the middle. That's fine, just keeps the pace going. And like I said in my other video, I really stopped watching Marvel projects after they took that big drop in quality in late 2022. Well, before with the movies, summer 2022, I remember Doctor Strange 2 was awful, with the character assassination of Wanda as a villain. People make fun of Thor 4. Thor 4 wasn't that bad. Its only crime was that it wasn't that funny or forgettable. Versus Doctor Strange 2 being this total character assassination of Wanda is a villain, nor is it really advancing Doctor Strange's character that much. It was, oh look, we're introducing the multiverse. So many other things did the multiverse better than what they promised as the first multiverse thing, or Ant-Man would be doing it. No, like, Deadpool and Wolverine actually handled the multiverse concept well, despite being a black comedy. And or the Spider-Man movie, No Way Home, but this was complete letdown. It felt like two different movies because it was. And leaks have recently come out about, this was a last-minute change. This isn't what they originally intended for Wanda, and they just plain weren't communicating with the team working on the flagship, amazing, groundbreaking WandaVision TV show. And I know it wasn't meant to be the first TV show for Marvel. Falcon and Winter Soldier was good, but it was meant to be the first one, and just because of production problems from the pandemic, they ended up putting WandaVision first, and it just had this huge impact because everyone was trapped in their homes, and it turned out to be a really good show. So just thinking all of that, just I felt hurt by. I love these TV shows so much. Even some of the others, like Hawkeye and Miss Marvel, okay, it's a character piece. The last few, the big one everyone points to is all the fighting on Secret Invasion, which was terrible. And I think She-Hulk gets a bit too much criticism because apparently that came out just as they were admitting there were problems, and they did try to fix it. No, this is true. I talked about in the first video that they never let the head writer be a showrunner and do their own retroactive reshoots. Up to this point, Marvel's concept of reshoots is the movie directors come in and film scenes that will tie into the upcoming movies, not like fixing it as a show. That it turns out She-Hulk, for whatever its mixed quality of the end product, originally it was worse. That was the first time that they let the head writer do reshoots, and they said even the studio heads said it was noticeably better. So that was sort of the turning point behind the scenes of when they realized we have to let people do that so experimentally. But She-Hulk cost $200 million. It cost as much as House of the Dragon Season 1, because of all the CG they need in it, which isn't always up to quality anyway, because of crunch culture, that you're overburdening what the production offices can do. That was also a problem on Ant-Man 3, Quantumania, that the major complaints from the CGI production companies that, yeah, we know it's half finished. They really just rushed it and treat CGI and everything as, oh, it'll fall into place, that you can't just keep beating the dead horse like that. That CGI isn't a magic wand replacement for good writing, even when the CGI is good. And at worst, though, it can be bad CGI, bad spectacle, just cheap, quick fixes. I don't mean to knock on She-Hulk so much. It's just Tatiana is a good actress. There were good moments in it, and they did manage to turn it around behind the scenes in post production from what would have been an outright disaster. But it's still ridiculously overpriced. It wasn't worth $200 million. And that they weren't really watching their budget and just throw money at it isn't really a solution equaling quality. And then Secret Invasion had this revolving door of people behind the scenes. Why am I bringing all of this up, all this preamble? In contrast, not only just watching it cold without looking at the behind the scenes stuff first, I went, wow, this is really good. Then I found out, because they say in subsequent articles in the news, Agatha All Along is officially the cheapest Marvel TV show ever made. It only cost $40 million. 1/5 of what She-Hulk cost. It is drastically better than She-Hulk. It cost a fifth of that, $40 million to their $200 million. So it's being rightly praised for, wow, we actually managed to make something really good quality on the cheap. And it's not this sprawling multiverse scale thing like even Falcon and Winter Soldier was a globe-trotting adventure story with political intrigue. There's a group of 6 characters going through a series of magical trials, very intimate, but it works in that context. That they don't need to have like a Guardians of the Galaxy scale CGI budget. So, a point they really made on this also, both for cost and for artistic reasons, and they brag about this in the interviews, they made it a point to use no CGI. Everything is a practical effect. Okay, well, almost everything. Obviously, like when energy bolts are shooting from witches' hands, or there's an intangible ghost. But those are rare. This is like old school Doctor Who level special effects, CGI wise. You don't really need that many in terms of like CGI aliens, Guardians of the Galaxy wise. That the sets are practical effects, like when they're in a magical house, that, oh, you climb through the oven to get into the next house. The fake geometries, that it isn't real, it's an illusion. Walk through the pool to get to somewhere else. That they said, no, we built those as practical sets and then just use camera trickery to, cross cut between the 2 different sets they're walking through. Yeah, that necessity is the mother of innovation. Old school sci-fi shows had to rely on their wits and, camera work. You know, it, I'd be I'd be worried that today, if they tried to make Lord of the Rings cold, if there wasn't an existing adaptation, they go, we'll just make them CGI creatures. Like the guy in the, I don't know if many of you will get the reference to someone who shows up at the end of the Eternals post-credit scene, but Lord of the Rings didn't really need CGI for the hobbits. They used camera tricks, a forced perspective and stuff. They were practical effects. I mean, they used CGI for them in like the wide shots, but for the most part, that you just use different camera angles and things for. It's a trick set when they're doing camera things with the magic effects on everything. So obviously, I'm talking about this in audio and I'm describing visual things, but it makes it feel more real when, oh, it's a fake house, that the closet goes into the other dimension or something, when it's a practical effect, because it looks like a real door, because it is. That CGI should only be used sparingly for things you couldn't possibly put in originally. And that doesn't mean, oh, well, I want this 12-foot tree man like Groot in, and I can't do that practically, therefore I want CGI. Only use CGI as a last resort. That you had a story idea, you tried to do it practically, couldn't work, and as a fallback, you use CGI. Never treat that as your first option because everything is photorealistic. I mean, I'm talking about this in Halloween season. How much did 1980s horror movies hold up that used, like Stan Winston practical effects, like the Predator movie holds up? John Carpenter's The Thing, Winston actually worked on that a bit. That holds up because it looks real. It ages well. But fish in a barrel scoring points on the CGI is just this was a fifth of what She-Hulk cost, and it is really well done story wise for the characters and everything. This is for all the new people who wondered if you haven't seen this, just rambling it off. If you haven't seen it, this is plot from the trailers, no spoilers. The whole thing is that Agatha Harkness finally breaks free from the mind spell that Wanda put her on at the end of WandaVision. And she was in there in Westview for 3 years. And she finally wakes up, but she's lost all of her magical powers. So she has to recharge them by going on this thing called the Witch's Road. It's not a place on Earth, you summon it, it's on the magical plane. And it looks like this eternal, dark, spooky forest, and it makes houses on the road for each member of your coven that are custom trials for each member. And they explain all this, that you need a coven in order to go down the Witch's Road, you can't go alone. A coven needs 5 members, and it'll customize 5 different stops on the road that are a trial for each of you. And if you get to the end, you get to make a wish for whatever you want. So each episode takes on one of those in turn. The supporting cast are good. Notable is veteran Patti LuPone. Her witch Lilia is very likable in the sense that, well, she's this wise, more or less kind 500-year-old witch born in Sicily who is someone you'd actually want to be around because she's wise and intelligent and usually helpful. Aubrey Plaza, on the other hand, her witch is cool to watch because, dude, it's Aubrey Plaza, hamming it up as only she can, but you wouldn't want to be with Aubrey Plaza's character. She's not a nice person. They move on from the fallout of WandaVision and Westview pretty quickly, actually. We thought they were just going to be looking backwards. That all gets wrapped up by the end of the first episode. Everyone gets little cameos, though, like I said. One thing, though, I love it that they show this in the trailers, that at the beginning of episode 1, Agatha is still perceiving the world as TV shows, that she's been hypnotized into being the TV character. And you saw this at the end of WandaVision, it's not that reality is warping anymore, it's just she's like walking through a dream, that she perceives everything as TV shows. And they say, well, lately she's been in true crime drama mode, which is a riff on how the showrunner worked on Kate Winslet's Mayor of Easttown. And they even have this fake title sequence at first, where the title cards show that Agnes of Westview is based on a Danish crime drama, WandaVision. That was great. My only minor complaint, and this is a minor complaint, but on the other hand, well, they said we want to move on quickly from WandaVision instead of retreading it, and I get that. Minor complaint is I wish they showed a little more from outside Agatha's perspective. When she's in this spellbound state, what is she doing in real life? They only imply it. They vaguely allude to it, that when she finally snaps out of it and confronts a neighbor, she directly asks, wait, so I've been living here for 3 years, spouting off nonsense because I thought I was living in TV shows, and you all just humored me? Well, we all thought it was funny. It's a Simpsons joke, but, like, the one point where they give a hint of that, of what was it she actually doing, because reality wasn't really warping, she was hallucinating it. The one hint is after she snaps out of it and says, I'll drive the car, instead of walking to her garage or whatever, she instinctively sits down at a table where she, like, set up a car wheel and there's tissue boxes for pedals. So that kind of hinted at what was she really doing while she was in this haze. And my hope is that in the second half of the show, at some point in flashbacks, they'll go, and this is what it really looked like when she was like walking down the street, acting like a Mayor of Easttown detective, and the neighbors were just smiling and, let the crazy person be crazy. I hope they show us that at one point, just as a one-off joke. It doesn't have to be that long. Just the external perspective from her neighbors of what was it like being around her these 3 years. We'll see what happens. I'm going to close on 2 or 3 other points which are a little spoilery. Not much, I mean, you pick all this up. First, I like how they set up that there's different kinds of witches because they said our magic system is a coven needs a minimum of 5 witches because there's 5 points of a pentagram. The pentagram wasn't always a demonic symbol. It got co-opted by that, but originally it was a pagan symbol. But point is, well, actually, come to think of it, please tell me about this, specifically in the comments, discuss this. In other media I've seen it said that you need 4 witches to make a coven. 1 for each cardinal direction, north, south, east, west, and the 4 elements. I mean, like they run footage of classic witch movies in the end credits of this. Like one of them is The Craft. Like, remember The Craft, they said you need 4 witches for 4 cardinal directions. But in Marvel rules, you need 5 for a pentagram. So they set up, well, each one is a different type of witch. And yes, in the interviews, the showrunner said, we are painfully aware of comparisons to Avatar The Last Airbender. That the different kinds of witches are based on classical elements. And they said, we're trying not to lean too hard into that. But, if anything, witches come from pagan folklore. Pagan folklore came first. The idea of the 4 classical elements predates that Avatar The Last Airbender also used it. I mean, it's not like it has a monopoly on that. So I like that they're trying not to lean into it too much, but they just mention it like, well, a green witch is earth magic over nature and plants and things, and that's the foundation. A blue witch is water magic, which means a healer. Healer makes potions and things. A red witch is fire, which is a defender, protector, warrior type witch. And Alice, the one who's the fire witch, she's an ex-cop, because she defends people. And Patti LuPone's character, she's an air witch, which corresponds to divination. Like prophecy. So they said they go recruiting them, and these are the 4 kinds we need to recruit. We need the nature witch, the healer witch, the defender witch, and the divination witch for the 4 elements. And this is the mild spoiler thing. This isn't really giving anything away. That, well, there's 5 members. And I did notice that in the first episode. I was like, they don't say what kind Agatha is as the 5th member. And subsequently they do say in, like, episode 5 what kind she is. And then I saw the after episode interview where the showrunner, Schaefer, is explaining, yeah, we wanted people to ask after the first episode where we talked about recruiting the coven, second episode, wait, which one is Agatha? When they start the road, we didn't say. We wanted people curious about that, so that worked. That they do explain it by episode 5. And it's one of those things where if it was something unpredictable, it would be crazy. And because it is sensible, it'll be accused of being formulaic. But, well, dude, it's a trope for a reason. It makes sense. I'm building up this too much. That they explain that, yes, Agatha is a spirit witch. That the 5th kind of witch is spirit. Just like Avatar The Last Airbender, where the 5th kind of bending is spirit bending. The 5th element is spirit. But again, it's a trope for a reason. It makes sense. That in episode 5, the thing is that they're at the trial on the Witch's Road, customized for Agatha. Because she's a spirit witch, it's a haunted 1980s sleepover with a Ouija board and talking to ghosts and stuff. And another character outright asks the air witch, wait, I thought you talked to the dead. And then Patti LuPone's character explains, well, that's a common misconception, that air witches, like me, divination witches, Well, we can read details about living people or read time. That is, see through time to future events that will happen to living people. But contacting dead spirits in the spirit realm, entirely different category. Which, yeah, okay, that makes sense. They're not really inherently the same thing. And that's what Agatha does. She has these spirit witch powers. I wonder if that's tied to exactly how she can absorb other witches' powers. Another thing, she explains that I can only do it after I've been attacked first. It's a reversal attack when I absorb it from other people. And they play around with that. I'm not sure what the rules are supposed to be. I don't know Agatha that well from the comics. I know she's in the comics. Oh, and I love that. Side note, another thing in episode 5, they realize the only way they can escape being chased in the forest on the Witch's Road by enemies is we need to quickly fashion some makeshift brooms out of branches and leaves so they can fly. But like all of them roll their eyes and are mortified about it, how cliche it is, and they go, "Oh, witches have stopped using flying brooms. It got co-opted by the Halloween entertainment industry. It's so stupid." So I was in the trailer, but then that they show them flying brooms in the trailer, and then when it actually happens, they all remark on how cliche it is. Another thing that came up is they actually name drop Mephisto for the first time. Mephisto, the demon from the comics, is pretty prominent. And back during WandaVision, as it was coming out one week to the next, there was this big online speculation, you all remember. And one of the fan theories that gained decent traction was that maybe Mephisto is doing this. And they said we never even intended that, fans just came up with it, and it was a decent guess, but this time they name drop Mephisto at one point randomly. Oh, no one ever knows what happened to that guy. Some people say he was an agent of Mephisto, and then they don't remark on it again. And the question is this foreshadowing that they're going to introduce Mephisto, or was it just a name drop as an Easter egg to the fans because how much people thought about it in the first... I don't think it was yanking our chains. I think it was just them giving a nod to fans who had talked so much about Mephisto in the first show. Nonetheless, I really wouldn't want them to introduce Mephisto in this. I mean, specifically, they might mention him a little more, but I think it's already crowded as it is. They're not really going in that direction. I mean, I'd like to see Mephisto in the MCU. I just don't think it really fits in this episode, in this series. So, opinions may vary. Tell me in the comments, do you want Mephisto to pop up later in this show? Or would it make more sense to save him for something big later? I think they should save him for something big later. But okay, they name drop Mephisto. And last spoiler warning, turn back now. As you've probably seen from trailers on TV already, yes, the teen played by Joe Locke is Wanda's son, Billy Maximoff. They reveal that at the end of episode 5, and because I'm stopping at the cutoff point here, I mean, I've seen episode 6, but they'll explain more about that in the next one, that this is... even comic book fans, with all their convoluted stuff, consider the stuff with Wanda's children in the comics to be very convoluted. So they need to condense some things, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Please don't talk about that too much here. Just, yes, he's supposed to be her son, Wiccan. Billy Maximoff is Wiccan. And because they've been sort of setting up that the TV shows are, introducing the Young Avengers at a future point. I mean, we've got Kate Hudson showed up in Hawkeye, that there's Hulk's son at the end of She-Hulk, Ant-Man's daughter, a bunch of things that they're trying to set up. I really hope we get X-23 in there, but after Deadpool versus Wolverine, but and Wolverine, but who knows? But okay, yes, Wiccan is in there, and it's part of Young Avengers and everything. I'll leave more of that for the next video after the show ends of the second half. But point of this is just to say I was already watching this in my free time. And because there's not a lot else to talk about at the moment, I could dash off an audio-only podcast. And taste clusters, if this is the type of show that Game of Thrones fans would also like, odds are enough of you are watching. I'm not really thinking I'm going to suddenly branch out into this and get a bunch of new subscribers. Like, I made a Dune Part 2 review earlier this spring for myself more than anything. I didn't think I was going to suddenly become a Dune channel because there's better channels out there doing a better job. It's just people in the comment sections ask, wow, this is the show of the moment, like Wanda or Penguin. What are your thoughts on it? So, more for my core followers than anything, I said it's relatively easy for me to dash off a review of it. Just this is what I'm thinking about. Which is still time that I have so much other stuff to get to with the Game of Thrones stuff, of the behind the scenes things of the parent company and everything. But long story short, if you haven't seen the show yet, is it worth your time investment? Definitely. That this has really turned around how Marvel TV shows, we were like, oh, this is okay, through like Hawkeye, and then Loki 2 is Loki 2, that's continuation of season 1, but then they were just cranking out some forgettable things, and no, this turned it around. This is returning to the roots. It's a follow-up to WandaVision, and they did it well. It wasn't just nostalgia member berries, but it's a follow-up to WandaVision in a different direction following Agatha. So they did that. Again, I do think Penguin is... people. There's memes going around of, oh, thanks for trying Agatha, but Penguin is the show of the fall. Agatha is... they're different genres, they're different scales of show, and Agatha is impressive because it was made on a shoestring budget of 40 million. And it's a character piece versus Penguin is like movie quality, huge budget. They're different styles of thing. They're not really trying to compete. Originally, I was going to try to do some sort of Marvel versus DC 1 week at a time, reviewing each episode. You know, like if because they came out within a week of each other, I was going to review. My original idea was have a video about Agatha episode 1 versus Penguin episode 1, but they don't really fit that format. And also Agatha, while it does feel episodic, you only get where they're going with the show by watching it more than one episode. It's a story arc, so it's better this way. I like this better. Of just the first half is my thoughts on the introduction to it, and then something on how the second half went is probably how I'm going to review other TV shows. And the only things I am planning on reviewing in the near future are Agatha, Penguin, The Dune Show, and in some more detail, I do want to get to Lord of the Rings, more for myself than anything. Season 2 actually was better than Season 1, noticeably better. But it's just for my own sake, because I was really annoyed that I couldn't keep up with the pace of Season 1 and House of the Dragon Season 1. For myself, I want to get to that, like in November or something. After Agatha and Penguin end, because I'm already behind on it. But was this worth your time? Yes, Agatha All Along is crisp. It's this... the pacing is great. You know, for one of the complaints about the other shows, there isn't a wasted scene. Some of the episodes are even pretty short, like 30 minutes. Moves at a fast clip. It's funny. A lot of this is just the performance of Catherine Hahn, not even, you know, the script, of just the way she snarks and reacts, her facial reaction. It's very hard to do comedy without just... well, it's her mannerisms, but her delivery is spot on. This was great, and we complain about so many things as sci-fi fantasy fans that this was great. That for once, wow, is this what it feels like having nice things? This and Penguin were both very good in different ways, in terms of their styles, so, oh god, for once, is this what optimism feels like? So, that's where we are right now. I'm mostly making these videos just as an excuse to... I want to give you guys an opportunity to have a comment section where you can share your thoughts on it, have your voice heard. So I'm going to try to respond to all of them. Please, in the comment section, I'm making this so you have somewhere to talk about these one at a time. Of course, the real update to the Marvel model will be Daredevil in spring, but I'll cover upcoming 2025 TV shows at New Year's. That for now, this is what my TV schedule is looking like. I know I'm a little behind, but right after this, I've already recorded the Penguin stuff. So please like, subscribe, and please comment. I'm going to try to respond to everyone.